Hello, friends. Today's podcast question says, my son has hit an age where he asks nonstop for new toys. He doesn't demand them in an entitled sort of way, but I don't think we can go half the day without him asking to add something to a Christmas or a birthday list. How can I gently fight against consumerism as a parent? Now, this is an important question for us to think through because this issue of consumerism is huge in our culture. I mean, just think about the fact that we live in a world where with Amazon Prime, we can get most items delivered to our house within 2 days. In fact, I know Amazon has started a new service where you can get so many products actually delivered within 12 hours, which is just ridiculous. And on top of this, as a culture, we have stopped focusing on quality items, but have started focusing on quantity of items because we are so used to having things crafted cheaply and sadly often through forced labor overseas that we don't truly value the things that we already have, but we're always just looking for more and more and more. And now this is not just an issue with our children. This is an issue with us adults as well. So today on the podcast, we're going to look at how can we get to the heart or the root of this issue. So that's what we're going to look at today on the Foundation Worldview podcast, where we seek to answer your questions so that you can equip the children that God has placed in your care to carefully evaluate every idea they encounter and understand the truth of the biblical worldview. I'm your host, Elizabeth Urbanowitz, and I'm thrilled that you've joined me for another episode today. Now, speaking of items that we can get on Amazon, I wanted to talk about an item that you can get on Amazon, but is not something that's just about getting more, but is a quality product that will actually help you continue to disciple your children. So just wanted to remind you about the release of my book, Helping Our Children Know God's Good Design, 40 Questions and Answers on Gender and Sexuality. So I'm really excited for this book to release. It releases on October 7th of 2025. And you can use this book as a helpful manual anytime a question comes up that you want to figure out, how do I talk with my child biblically and in a way that's developmentally appropriate about this issue regarding sexuality or gender. So you can use it as a manual like that, a resource guide, or you can read straight through it just to help give yourself firm biblical footing on how you can ground your children in the goodness of God's design for sexuality and gender. And if you order this book during its pre-release season, it helps both you out and it helps us out at Foundation Worldview. It helps you out because Amazon has a pre-order price guarantee, which means whatever is the cheapest price that the book drops to between the time you purchase it and the time it's released, you're going to get that cheapest price. It also helps us out because the more copies that sell before a book releases on Amazon, that's really what sets the algorithm on Amazon for how much Amazon is going to push the book once it is released. And as you can guess, in today's hostile culture, it is going to be already a difficult challenge for us to get Amazon to push this book because of the subject matter. So if you order it during the pre-release, it helps you out and it helps us out. Now, thinking about this question about how to fight a consumeristic mindset with our children, anytime we want to help our children overcome a struggle or a habit, we have to get to the root of that issue. It's kind of like if you have a crabapple tree in your backyard and you're like, I don't want these crab apples in my yard. I don't want my kids eating them. It's not good for them. It's poisonous for animals. I want to get rid of these crab apples. Well, what you can do is you can continue to go out and pull all the crab apples off the tree and put them in the garbage. But what's going to happen? Well, more crab apples are just going to continue to grow. So what you need to do is you actually need to get to the root. You need to dig that tree up by its roots and remove it from your yard. And so it's similar with any struggle that we have in our lives or our kids have in their lives. We have to get to the root. And so now let's look at what is the root of consumerism or always wanting more. Well, the root was what the Bible reveals as the sin of coveting. And coveting is desiring what God hasn't given us while not being content with what he has given us. Now, we will all struggle with coveting to one degree or another until we die or until Jesus returns. However, we want to help ourselves and our children learn to fight this sin of coveting. So the first thing we need to do is we need to help our children understand this root sin, this coveting. So a great place to take them to is to Exodus chapter 20, verse 17, right in the middle of the 10 commandments. Actually, I should say right at the end of the 10 commandments. And this verse says, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's." And so we can ask our kids, what truth is revealed by this verse? That we are not supposed to covet anything that God has not given us, but that he has given others. So we can then talk with our kids about how coveting is also believing that the things that we don't have will make us happy. Believing if I have that toy, or I have that dessert, or I have that item of clothing, or I have that new trinket, or I have this new house, or I have this new car. It's believing that an item that we don't have is going to make us happy. And I think an easy way to help our children see this is to share an example of how we have struggled with coveting. Share with your kids about a time when you really, really wanted something and you believed that that thing would make you happy. And then you got that thing and it didn't ultimately provide the happiness that you thought that it would. I think of myself in times when I order new things. Now, sometimes we need new things. We need to go to the grocery store every week to get food. If we legitimately are running out of clothes, we don't have enough clothes to make it through a week, we do need to buy more clothes. So there are times when we do legitimately need to buy things, but we tend to think that when we get something that we desperately want, that it's going to make us happy. But it doesn't. Ultimately, all things that we can have on this earth are going to fail us because we were designed to be satisfied in Christ alone. So then I think something practically that we can do is we can set healthy boundaries with our children. So particularly for this questioner, talk with your son about how he is requesting new items for his birthday and Christmas list frequently. And say, you know what? We're going to change something because I don't want your heart and your mind to always be focused on new things that you want. And so to help you with this, we're not going to put any items on your birthday or Christmas list until I ask you about them. And so then talk with your son about a certain time that you're going to ask him. If his birthday, let's say his birthday is September 24th, say, you know what? At the beginning of August, the first week of August, I'm going to ask you what are some gifts that you would like to put on your birthday list, and then say, for Christmas on maybe, like October 1st or November 1st, I'm going to ask you what are some items you'd like on your Christmas list. But I don't want you to ask me to put any items on that list until I ask you. And then when he, comes back, because ultimately he is going to eventually forget, especially if he's in this habit of asking you to put things on the list every day, he's going to forget. So when he asks you to put something on the list, remind him, oh, remember? We set a new boundary. Are you going to ask me to put things on the list anymore? Nope. I'm going to ask you, on August 1st or whatever the date is, what you want on your birthday list. And it's not that date yet, so we're not going to worry about this. Then the next thing that we need to do with our children is we need to help them practice the antidote to coveting. That the New Testament continually shows us this pattern of putting off and putting on. I think a great place where this is modeled is in Colossians 3. Paul gives us a whole list of things we're supposed to put off and then put on, because we can't just take off a sinful pattern. We have to replace it with what is true and what is good and what is beautiful. So what is the antidote to coveting? It's gratitude. Rather than focusing on what we want that God hasn't given us yet, we are to focus on what God has given us and have a grateful spirit for this. So to help our children in this, we can start practicing gratitude daily as a family. Just some practical ideas are each evening at dinner, have everybody go around and share one or two things that they're grateful for. If you want to, you can even start a gratitude wall. Have one wall in your kitchen or your living room or your dining room or some other room. Just be a wall where you place sticky notes for things that you're grateful for. Maybe every Sunday afternoon, as you're practicing resting together, you can write down, each of you, one thing that you're grateful for and, put that sticky note up on the wall. Then if your children For example, with this questioner, if your son is asking for a new thing to put on his list, remind him of this new boundary, that you're not going to put new things on his list, but you're going to ask him eventually. And then have him say 3 things that he already has that he's grateful for. Okay, so we need to practice this antidote to coveting, which is putting on gratitude. So, just as a reminder, what the recommendations I made is to get to the root of this issue, which is coveting, to reveal that, and then to take your child to Exodus 20:17, then to help set some healthy boundaries, by not allowing him to put new items on his birthday or Christmas list, and then practice the antidote to coveting, which is gratitude. Just on a practical note, thinking about this culture where we have so much, even if you don't buy your children lots of new toys, you're going to have so many toys around your house because grandparents and aunts and uncles and friends are all going to be buying your kids toys for their birthday and for Christmas and for other events. So one thing I recommend is that you actually rotate toys out, that you not have all toys available at all times, but that you have certain toys available at certain parts of the week. Or maybe it's for a month or two, you take certain toys away and you say, you know what? These are going to be our springtime toys. We're not going to take these out until the spring. Or these are going to be our summertime toys. We're not going to take them out until the summer. Because when we have unlimited access to something, it tends to make us callous towards that thing. Where when there are healthy limits set around something, it tends to increase our gratitude. I saw this several years ago in my life. I did something which probably many of you will consider very weird, but it really helped me that there was a company, it's called Wool and they create dresses made out of merino wool for women. And they have a 100-day dress challenge where you buy a dress from them and you commit to, for 100 days, you wear that same dress. And every day you take a picture of yourself in that dress to prove that you wore it. And then once you've completed those 100 days, you send in your photos, and they send you like a $100 gift card to their store. And I did this in, I think it was 2023. I wore the same dress for 100 days. And I was shocked by how wearing the same thing every day helped me be so grateful for that one dress that I was wearing. Now, sometimes, I'd put a jean jacket over it, or a sweater or something, but I became so grateful for that dress. And it actually, wearing the same thing every day helped me want fewer clothes. And so I've actually just gotten into the habit that I've kind of really bought into that philosophy, of just being really simple in my wardrobe. And I've started, once a year or sometimes twice a year, I'll let myself buy a new dress from that company, and then I'll just wear it over and over and over and over again. And it has really helped my heart not constantly be longing for more. So if you can do that with your kids' toys, if you can rotate out toys, and, have, only have them available during certain times of the year or certain times of the week, or, maybe you just have toys that are only available during road trips or toys that are only available on the weekend. By limiting the access, that's a really helpful way to increase gratitude for what we already have. Well, that's a wrap for this episode. But if you have a question that you would like for me to answer on a future Foundation Worldview podcast, you can submit that question by going to foundationworldview.com/podcast. As we leave our time together, my prayer for you is that no matter the situation in which you and the children God has placed in your care find yourselves, you would trust that God is working all things together for your good by using all things to conform you more into the image of his Son. I'll see you next time.